Right, so now we're going to look at the effect of trade when you are a country that's internationally competitive in something, or going again from the no trade to the free trade. And we're going to look at, is the market for the acai fruit. And so there's supposed to be a little squiggle under there. Going to I think it's something like this. Okay, so what's acai? This is a berry that grows in Brazil, and I don't know where else it grows. I never heard of it until sometime after 2000. Never heard of this fruit. So what happens is that you've got a product that it's not allowed to be traded, but you have a product that's well known in Brazil. So there's demand for it in Brazil, and there's a supply of it in Brazil. And the Brazilians are eating their acai, and let's say it's $6 a pound. It's the market equilibrium. So let's get our equilibrium point here. And so we go across from the intersection of supply and demand to the price axis, and we see the price, go across to the, and so I will just note that this is not reflecting actually what we call elasticities. This is an agricultural product. You get automatically just necessarily increase your supply if the price goes up. So just to note that we have a very simple model here. So what happens if all of a sudden, and this does really happen, Oprah goes on her show and says, wow, this acai thing, it's a super berry. And some Americans go down to Brazil and they say, man, this has so many good things about it. And so the health food industry in Jamaica decides, boy, we really need this acai. And it doesn't even grow in the US. Now, all of a sudden, you've got people in the US who want to buy this product. This doesn't even grow in the US, right? So what happens in Brazil? What happens in Brazil is that the price, and I just want to think about this as the suddenly there's no trade, there's nobody outside of Brazil buying it, and then all of a sudden there are people who want to buy it. Look at what the price goes up. Americans have the money and they're willing to pay a lot more than the Brazilians. So imagine if you're a farmer, you're a person who's selling to a Brazilian store and you get offered almost double, right? So what's happening here? Got the world price both here. And it's above the domestic equilibrium of $6. So what's going to happen if you have an American chain offering you to buy your, the acai bowls of the world or the sembazan, right? What happens if you're an acai farmer and you've been selling to a Brazilian, but now you get offered double? Well, you're going to say to your Brazilian customer, well, you got to match what the American is offering me. And so the price in Brazil, and this goes for whether it's a product like acai or whether you're just a company that has a very low cost and the rest of the world is interested in your product. And if you're relatively close, people are coming to you to try to buy your product. If your country is relatively efficient internationally, producing a product, allowing trade, means that your costs are lower than in other countries. And you will export, you'll end up selling to other countries the product. Trade, P world, it's going to be greater. The price you can get is going to be greater than P star. So QS will increase and QD, and this is the domestic demand and supply, will decrease. And so it's So what's going to happen here when I think about this intuitively is that whoever is farming or making this product, whoever's getting this fruit, whoever owns the land on which this fruit is, they're going to start to make a lot more money. And the people who buy this are going to be hurt. Either they have to match the American price, or they are just not going to be able to afford it whatsoever. Okay, so let's look at the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. Without trade, it's everything below the demand curve, but above the initial price of $6 P star. But what happens after trade? Well, the price goes up to $11, still everything below the demand curve, but above now $11. Happens to producer surplus? Well, initially they're being paid $6. What is the amount that they receive above and beyond the cost? It's that yellow area there. But what happens when the price goes to $11? Price goes to $11. Well, it's everything below that price that we receive, but above the supply curve. So it gets much, much bigger. Okay. So now we do the welfare chart to think about all the different areas. Again, we want to make sure that they are separated. I have the consumer surplus, and you've kind of seen where I have my different colored lines. I think that's in a different color is identified. So this little part needs to be separately identified. Another part that needs to be separately identified. This is just separately identified. And so I don't have any government. I don't, of course, have any market failures, no externalities here. We're assuming no market failures in our very simple model, just consumers and producers. And I'm going to look at the no trade. This is when nobody knows about acai except for people who go to Brazil. I feel like this is kind of like the Bombay mango of Jamaica. It's a mango that I don't think people outside of Jamaica know about. It's just the most delicious mango ever. And so I'm going to go. So consumer surplus, it's the value that the consumer is getting, what they're willing and able to pay over and above the price, which initially is $6. So everything below demand but above $6, which is A and B. That's with no trade. So people who buy acai, having a lot of health benefits there. And what happens with trade? They've got to pay $11. So see, the domestic consumption goes down from 6. So let's assume this is an, again, I should put a quantity. Let's assume it's a quantity, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of pounds of acai. I should, we could look up the reality of how much acai is actually produced. So with that loss of generality, we're going to assume that this is the unit. What about with trade? Then it just is the area below the demand curve, but above $11, and that's just A. So that the producer surplus, everything below $6 above the supply curve, or that yellow area, is D. Initially without any trade, but with trade, what happens? Suddenly I have all these customers. The world is my oyster. And so I am going to add, I had D before, but now I'm going to add B and C. It's that higher price that some people are willing to pay still in Brazil to get this product. There's that money I get from my old customers. But then there's all this money that I'm getting now from the, let's actually define this. This is our new quantity demanded. I'm only selling 100,000 in Brazil now. And then here we have 11. Let's see, it's my new quantity supplied. So why is it that I can sell so much more than what people are buying? Well, I'm selling all this. This is the excess how much I'm producing over what people are buying in Brazil. Remember, all of this is only Brazilian sellers and buyers. This is the market in Brazil is my model here. And this is exports. So the reason that I can produce all this is that there's somebody willing to buy it. Remember, in the price floor example, the customers were not willing to buy it. Okay, so what happens? What's the effect of allowing exports when a country has a competitive advantage internationally? Well, the consumers have less wealth. They lose area B. The producers gain. They're very happy to sell and make more money. And they generally don't care whether you're local or foreign. They just want to make money, right? We're assuming that people who sell firms are trying to maximize profits. So our total surplus in everything below the demand curve, but above the supply curve, up to 6 units without trade. Of course, we don't have any, no quantity beyond what's actually traded is relevant. The total surplus, everything below the domestic demand curve, up to 100,000 units here. But remember that the value to the society now is what the customers in another country are paying. And so the value, the revenue, the benefit that comes in from this, the value that's derived to the country from this product, it's now at $11 for units 1 all the way to 11. And so everything below the domestic demand curve up to 100,000, and then all the way to 11, it's $11. But again, above the supply curve, which reflects the cost, it's A, B, C, D. Could write that differently. It's the same area. So what are we gaining here? We could see that we're gaining C. We can see this 2 different ways. So do it both ways. See, what's the effect of exports? Well, more money is being made by the producers. It comes because we have this loss to the consumers in Brazil. So the Brazilians are either paying more or they're losing access to the product altogether because they don't value it as much as the Americans. And then C, we see is a gain in wealth that occurs to the Brazilian sellers, and that's coming from overseas. That's money that's coming in from overseas. So we have a gain, again, gains from trade. And so once again, the argument that economists make is that trade benefits. So there's winners and there's losers, but those benefits are those gains. The gains to the winners are bigger than the losses to the losers. And when you get gains that are bigger than the losses, you can actually redistribute. So theoretically, we have trade. We can actually have everybody being better off. That's what's theoretically possible. What happens in reality is that redistribution from winners to losers doesn't happen. You just think about examples such as Walmart, right? Walmart, the family that owns Walmart has made a lot of money. Have those gains been redistributed to workers who have been dislocated from the jobs for the things that Walmart used to sell? Right. And of course, these are empirical things. We can actually check and look at the numbers.